and enlisted the support of Bill Cassidy, who has been co-sponsor of major legislation on this subject. But it was then that I met with representatives of the Home Depot who told me about a problem they were facing. There were certain brands of power tools that they sold exclusively at Home Depot stores. They weren't supposed to be available anywhere else legally, but it turned out these tools were being offered for sale, new, still in the original box, by anonymous sellers on online marketplaces like Amazon. It wasn't hard to figure out what was going on. These tools were being stolen from the original manufacturer and resold online. And it wasn't just tools. It happened with all kinds of products, as we'll hear. Cosmetics, electronics, clothes, over-the-counter drugs, toys, even baby formula. I see some on the table there as an example. Third-party sellers were flooding the internet with products stolen and counterfeited. Often these products posed serious health and safety risks to customers who thought they were buying the original product. Back in 2008, I introduced my first bill to address the problem of illicit products sold online, and the marketplaces told me, don't worry, we're taking care of this. You don't need legislation. Well, here we are 13 years later, and this problem hasn't gone away. It's gotten much, much worse. When you buy products from third-party sellers on online marketplaces, you're really rolling the dice. In 2018, the Government Accountability Office ran a test. They bought a sample of 47 consumer products from third-party sellers on leading e-commerce websites to see how many just might be counterfeit. Out of 47, 20. 20 of the 47 were counterfeit. In January, the U.S. Trade Representative reported that, quote, the rapid growth of e-commerce platforms has helped fuel the growth of counterfeit, pirated goods into a $500 billion industry. $500 billion. And stolen goods continue to be offered online by sellers who pop up, disappear, and then pop up again. Retailers lose $45 billion each year in these schemes. My staff asked Home Depot if their tools are still being offered online as new by third-party sellers. They sent me 9 postings that popped up just last week, and that was a small sample. Here's one of them. A brand of lithium batteries that is only available at Home Depot, being offered for sale in a box by a third-party seller on Amazon for 20% below the retail price. After the fact, one-off investigations aren't stopping the problem. We need to take steps to deter shady sellers from using these marketplaces in the first place. Consumers deserve better than being deceived into buying sham products. Retailers are tired of how easy it is for organized groups of thieves to steal their goods and resell them online. Manufacturers are sick of seeing knockoffs of their products hawked on sites like Amazon. Congress needs to do something. That's what we were elected for. And there are several principles that should guide us. First, if somebody's going to sell large volume of goods online on a marketplace, they should tell the marketplace who they are. Doesn't that sound pretty basic? The sellers should be verified. Second, if a product sold online turns out to be a fake or stolen or dangerous, consumers should be able to report it and find the seller. And the marketplace must ensure that the seller can't just disappear and pop up later under a new account name. Third, if a consumer orders a product from one seller online and the order is actually filled by another company, the marketplace should inform the consumer. Verification, transparency, accountability. No more bait and switch. These are principles we should follow as we work to clean up online marketplaces. I've introduced a bipartisan bill, as I mentioned, with Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican of Louisiana, that promotes these principles. It's called the Informed Consumers Act. I'm honored to have as co-sponsors Senator Grassley, Senator Hirono, Coons, Tillis, Warnock, and Rubio. I thank them all. In the House, our bill is sponsored by my friend, Representative Jan Schakowsky, Democrat from Illinois. She has been a consumer advocate all her life. Before she was ever elected to public office, she was a mom who was raising hell about expiration dates being printed on dairy products. We take that for granted now, but she was one of the originals in that fight. She's joined by Republican Representative Gus Bilirakis from Florida. Her bill has been endorsed by a broad range of consumer groups, retailers, labor, and online marketplaces like Etsy and eBay. And the day after we announced this hearing, Amazon endorsed it too. We've negotiated and worked hard on this bill to achieve consensus, and I hope we can make it the law soon. There are other good bills out there, including the Shop Safe Act introduced by Senators Coons, thank you for being here, and Tillis, which addresses secondary liability for online marketplaces. Today we'll hear from a distinguished panel of witnesses who will talk about the scope of the problem. There is bipartisan support and momentum for addressing it, and I hope we get it done. Now I turn to my colleague and friend, Congressman, Senator. Did I cover every possibility? Chuck Grassley of Iowa.
Well, I thank you for your remarks and thank you for calling this hearing. And it's very important that we look into the roles of big tech in this area. Americans increasingly rely upon the internet to purchase everything from healthcare products and infant formula to iPhone chargers and even automobile parts. Unfortunately, criminals are using the online platforms to sell counterfeit or stolen items that can be very dangerous to consumers. This hearing will explore the problem. We must stop this activity. Thanks to the internet, we can now purchase nearly anything from nearly anywhere. Companies of all sizes can reach new customers all over the world. In the same way, counterfeiters and other criminals are exploiting online platforms. These activities threaten consumer safety and businesses' bottom lines. Criminals can easily open online storefronts on e-commerce marketplaces. Criminals operate under fake names and stolen identities. They use false credentials. If a marketplace takes them down, these criminals simply resurface under a different storefront identity. All the while, their listings look authentic to unsuspecting customers. Counterfeit products are usually substandard and often unsafe. Products often don't meet strict safety standards or comply with quality controls. For example, drug traffickers are using social media and other e-commerce platforms to market their products. We've also seen a spike in professional shoplifters of highly valued items to resell online. According to a 2020 survey by the National Retail Federation, organized retail theft has increased nearly 60% since 2015. Brand owners, manufacturers, and retailers are doing their very best to fight this epidemic, but even our largest companies, who can afford to have dedicated staff monitor online, don't seem to be able to keep up. Small businesses lack the necessary resources to pursue online counterfeiters. Law enforcement is also overwhelmed. That's why I introduced S. 1159, a bill that was included in the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, so businesses can get more information to shore up the integrity of their supply chain. Customers should have the same confidence buying online that they do if they went to a mortar and brick store. Consumers have to rely on the accuracy of online listings. So if a product listing consists of misleading images or fake reviews, it's more likely that the consumer will be then tricked into purchasing a counterfeit or stolen goods. It's clear that voluntary efforts by big tech companies, while a very good first step, are not enough. Online companies profit off of every sale on their platform, even if it's counterfeit or stolen. Consumers need more accountability and transparency, including who's operating online and selling these products. We should promote better screening, more transparent seller information, and increase collaboration and data sharing. It's very essential that businesses and platforms work with law enforcement to identify criminals selling counterfeits and stolen goods online. Congress should consider legislation to protect consumers from criminal enterprises operating online. None of the proposed solutions is a silver bullet. There needs to be a multifaceted approach to addressing the problem. Online shoppers deserve to have confidence that they're getting exactly what they're paying for and that their purchases are safe and authentic. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Grassley. We have 4 witnesses this morning. I'm going to introduce 3, and Senator Whitehouse will introduce the 4th. The first witness is Aaron Muterick. Did I pronounce that right, Aaron? Founder and president of Crazy Aaron's, a toy manufacturer in Norristown, Pennsylvania. He invented Thinking Putty, which is made here in America by his small business and 100 employees. His company is known for developing unique production methods to employ individuals with special needs. That's good. Mr. Muterick is on the board of the Toy Association. He's a volunteer firefighter. He received his BS from University of Rochester. Glad you're here. Carrie Camel is the Assistant Director for Education and Outreach and Senior Academic Specialist at Michigan State University Center for Anti-Counterfeiting and Product Protection, and takes today's prize for the longest title. She also serves as an adjunct professor of law at Michigan State University College of Law, teaches intellectual property and trademark law, previously worked for DePaul University College of Law, including in the Iraq office of their International Human Rights Law Institute, received her BA from University of Chicago, her MA from the American University in Cairo, and her JD from DePaul. Dane Snowden, President, CEO of the Internet Association. That association represents global internet companies on matters of public policy, and the members include Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Facebook, and Google. Prior to joining the association, Mr. Snowden was the Chief Operating Officer at the NCTA, that's the Internet and Television Association, and Vice President of CTIA, the Wireless Association. He's also served in the Federal Communications Commission as Chief of the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau, BA from William & Mary. Mr. Whitehouse, Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's my great pleasure to introduce to the committee Ben Dugan, who's the Director of Organized Retail Crime and Corporate Investigations for Rhode Island's CVS Health. CVS Health is a great, growing, and successful Rhode Island company that has shown leadership in many issues, including refusing to sell tobacco products as part of its commitment to its customers' health.
Amen.
Amen. Online marketplaces have been an important part of everyday life during the COVID shutdown, but they present convenient avenues for organized theft and crime. Orchestrated criminal schemes in online marketplaces flourished over the past year and a half. Mr. Dugan is at the vanguard of investigating and combating these crimes. For 3 decades, he's fought retail theft from big box, catalog, pharmacy, and specialty retailers. He's a national leader in retail loss prevention, particularly where it relates to e-commerce, and he's been featured in the news media as one of the foremost experts in dismantling organized retail crime. He's a veteran of the United States Army Military Police, serves as president of the National Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retail, and I'm delighted to have him here. I will say that as U.S. Attorney and Rhode Island Attorney General, it was my privilege to work with many skilled Rhode Island investigators, both in law enforcement and from the private sector. And Mr. Dugan continues our tradition of investigative excellence in Rhode Island. Delighted that he's here.
Thanks, Senator Whitehouse. We're going to follow the customary hearing process. After they're sworn in, witnesses will have 5 minutes for opening statements, then senators 5 minutes of questions. So would the witnesses please stand to be sworn in? Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record indicate that all answered in the affirmative. Mr. Muterick, your turn.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Muterick. I'm the founder and president of Crazy Aaron's, a toy manufacturer based in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley. I applaud your commitment to protecting consumers from unsafe, unreliable, and unregulated products sold through these channels. Curbing the flow of counterfeit and unsafe goods in e-commerce is critically important to me as a toy manufacturer and a small business owner. I founded Crazy Aaron's in 1998 with a mission to create toys that inspired a sense of wonder and creativity. I quickly realized that to make my product right, I was going to have to build my own factory. So that's what I did. And today, our headquarters is part of the revitalization of Norristown, where Thinking Putty is proudly made in the United States. We employ over 100 people, and for over 18 years, with the support of our customers, we have provided meaningful daily work to hundreds of additional individuals with disabilities in the Philadelphia area. While my business has seen successes since the days of experimenting in my parents' basement, it has come with unanticipated challenges. As our Thinking Putty became more popular, I discovered a tidal wave of infringing products being sold online through third-party sellers. We have spent significant time and resources policing these one by one. I have submitted to this committee a list of hundreds of third-party sellers, many based outside the United States, across numerous marketplaces, who we identify as infringing our marks. Today, I appreciate the opportunity to share 3 serious concerns. First, the enormous resources required from a small business to endlessly police these marketplaces for bad actors. Second, that due to many of these bad actors being outside the jurisdiction of the United States, our recourse to protect our intellectual property and reclaim damages is severely limited and, in many cases, non-existent. Third, and most importantly, these bad actors often sell unsafe goods which do not meet the stringent federal safety standards required of legitimate producers. These violations range from labeling requirements, illegal levels of regulated chemicals, and mechanical hazards which cause acute physical harm. Consumers visit online marketplaces assuming that the products they see meet safety standards. So I created the world's first magnetic putty. It's a putty toy that crawls over to a magnet as if it was alive. And it was a tremendous commercial success, and it differentiated us from competitors. We invested significant R&D into making it a reality and in making it a safe product. As counterfeiters, infringers, and knockoffs flooded the marketplace, magnetic putty sales began to decline. I scrambled to dedicate resources to beating back infringers, but became increasingly concerned that almost every one of the competing products did not comply with mandatory federal safety standards. Today, I have brought with me products I purchased last week from 2 of the largest online marketplaces in the US. I also have brought independent third-party laboratory results showing their non-compliance with mandatory federal standards. Our company has done this testing at our own expense and communicated this non-compliance to online marketplaces again and again, following up with them repeatedly. We have done this for years. Nonetheless, these products remain available for sale. They are purchased in the hundreds of thousands by unsuspecting consumers. They contain loose as received, high-strength, hazardous magnets, which are not legal in children's products. You will note that the product packaging and online listings for these products include language like safe for children ages 3+ or safety tested. They include photos of children as young as toddlers playing with them. Accidental ingestion of these hazardous magnets can cause serious internal injuries, debilitating lifelong disability in some, and unfortunately, numerous fatalities have been documented. Their magnetic strength is so high, they destroy themselves when drawn to each other. You can see in the video and photo I have provided that when these magnets collide, they not only shatter into razor-sharp shards, but due to the nature of their materials, they will spark and have the capacity to start a fire. If my words, demonstration, or laboratory results aren't enough, you need only look at the consumer reviews of these products, which are publicly available in the marketplaces themselves. An example, quote, "The magnet broke apart while I was showing this off to a friend. He was pulling them apart, sliced open his finger. I do not recommend this to anyone." Thank you for the opportunity to share the story of one product amongst a sea of millions available in online marketplaces. I appreciate your efforts to secure consumers from counterfeit and unsafe goods, and I look forward to answering your questions.
And we appreciate your testimony and the fact that your business philosophy is embracing people with disabilities.
Thank you
for doing that. Professor Dr. Camel, you're next.
Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to speak today. My remarks draw on my research on online trademark counterfeiting, as well as my work with brand protection industry professionals. At the ACAP Center, I focus on research, education, and outreach around trademark counterfeiting and brand protection with my colleagues. We work with both intellectual property rights owners and governments, as well as online marketplaces, social media platforms, and other industry experts across the field, giving us the unique ability to examine the significant problem holistically from a neutral academic perspective. Today, I'll give an overview of online counterfeit sales by third-party sellers and the current state of the law and make two recommendations. One, I support the Inform Consumers and Shop Safe bills. And two, I recommend continued and expanded data sharing and research on the trade in counterfeit goods and anti-counterfeiting responses. I'd like to start by painting a picture of what is occurring with trademark counterfeiting on online marketplaces in the current state of the law. The sale of counterfeit goods online impacts national economies, companies of all sizes, including small and medium-sized enterprises, and consumers, and has exploded in the past decade, and even more so since COVID-19. The financial impact of the sale of counterfeit goods is staggering, estimated roughly over $460 billion worth of global sales in 2019. Counterfeiters find success by using another company or brand owner's trademark on a product or package without authorization to sell a fake and usually substandard or even dangerous good. They also take advantage of the opportunity online marketplaces provide to reach often unsuspecting consumers who cannot examine the goods before purchase. Consumers struggle to be able to report suspected counterfeit or cannot find a third-party seller for service of process if they're injured or killed. Online marketplaces have varying levels of proactive and reactive efforts. In order for a counterfeit to be sold to a consumer on an e-commerce platform, there must be a meeting in time and space of the consumer, the counterfeiter's posting, and the e-commerce platform. The most effective way to disrupt this is to remove one of these factors from the situation proactively before they ever reach that meeting in time and space on the platform. In the brick and mortar space, the current state of the law requires service providers such as flea markets or malls to take steps to disrupt the sale of counterfeits and consumers. However, in the e-commerce space, we don't find the same parallel currently in the law. The current state of the law rests primarily on the 2010 Second Circuit case of Tiffany versus eBay, which notes that an e-commerce platform only needs to act if they have specific knowledge of a counterfeit posting from a brand, known as the contemporary knowledge requirement. There is no proactive requirement for the prevention of counterfeit postings or monitoring of their own platforms for counterfeit, even though they have the most control over the platforms that they've created. Thus, an imbalance has evolved where brand owners attempt to take down counterfeit postings, but cannot get at the root of the issue. Tied into this is a lack of transparency about third-party sellers, details on vetting, takedown, repeat sellers, or any education, awareness, or reporting mechanisms for consumers. While Informed Consumers and Shop Safe reflect the growing urgency on this topic and take different approaches, they both seek to require e-commerce platforms to proactively take measures to vet third-party sellers from selling counterfeits and provide multiple avenues for tackling this complex issue. In my opinion, both pieces of legislation are essential to balance the obligation of brand owners and e-commerce platforms in the space due to the shift from brick-and-mortar environments to the current online e-commerce space that the law did not foresee, and importantly, to provide consumers with more education, protection, and avenues in which to report suspected counterfeit goods. I also recommend continued and expanded data sharing and research on the trade in counterfeit goods and anti-counterfeiting responses. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this hearing on this very important issue, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Camel. Mr. Snowden is next.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, and members of the committee. On behalf of the Internet Association and the Internet industry, thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee today to discuss the ways that online platforms are partners in the fight against illegal and counterfeit goods, retail theft, and protecting consumers from bad actors online. IA represents over 40 of the world's leading Internet companies on public policy. Our mission is to foster innovation, promote economic growth, and empower people through the free and open Internet. Online marketplaces and platforms are the virtual main streets that enable us to purchase the things we want and need. Not all marketplaces are the same. Different items, different sellers, different audiences. In households across America, we use online marketplaces and platforms to get our groceries for the week, sell our children's old clothes that they grow out of too fast, and find handmade goods and crafts to decorate our homes, all with a click or swipe on a screen. As we continue to live through the COVID-19 global pandemic, online marketplaces and platforms have helped Americans by delivering the essential goods and products that consumers need to maintain their daily lives and keep our economy going. While the vast majority of online sellers and goods sold online are legitimate, the internet industry recognizes that online systems have created new challenges for brand owners, rights holders, retailers, and consumers. However, counterfeiting, retail theft, and organized crime are not new problems, nor were they created by online platforms and marketplaces. It will take all of us, law enforcement, big box retail, brands and rights holders, state AGs, and online marketplaces to work together to combat the illegal activity by organized crime. Online marketplaces have made this a priority and work every day to stop organized crime and counterfeiters. We recognize the responsibility and the important role we play in the ecosystem in stopping this activity. And we continue to innovate and cooperate to ensure our marketplaces are safe and trusted by the consumers and sellers who use our stores. We are on the right path to addressing these issues. It is important to stress, internet companies do not permit illegal or counterfeit goods on their platforms. They have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in tools and deployed thousands of team members to implement clear policies. When they find something that violates their terms of service, they take it down, or in other cases, never allow it up. Online platforms and marketplaces vet sellers up front through the direct and indirect means. They use advanced tools like image detection and machine learning, as well as reports from brand owners, rights holders, and consumers continue monitoring for any issues. The partnership with brand owners and rights holders are critical because they are in the best position to identify counterfeit goods. The investments the internet industry made in tools, teams, and partnerships is finding success. Last year, Amazon enrolled more than 500,000 brands in its free reporting tool. Those brands reported a 99% reduction in suspected infringements, and less than 0.01% of products sold on Amazon last year received a counterfeit complaint from a customer. eBay works with 40,000 individual right holders to identify intellectual property infringement, and Etsy's investments in trust and safety teams have led to a 58% increase in intellectual property-related takedowns. Beyond these proactive efforts, we support the chairman and committee's goals of further minimizing the availability of counterfeit and other illegal goods online. Internet Association encourages the committee to consider two aspects when taking legislative action that impact sellers, consumers, and online marketplaces and platforms. First, a national framework that clearly preempts a patchwork of states or local laws would ensure that Americans continue to receive a consistent internet experience nationwide. While states have an important law enforcement role to play in protecting consumers and stopping retail theft, federal law should be the sole source of regulation for internet companies that operate across state lines. Second, any information collection and disclosure requirements should be careful not to impose unnecessary burdens or barriers on small businesses. Many online sellers are very small, homegrown operations. Information collection and disclosure requirements should consider their challenges by establishing reasonable thresholds and timelines and protecting their privacy. For these reasons, we recognize the changes made in the Senate version of the Informed Consumers Act, and we are encouraged by the version that was recently introduced in the House. The House bill sets national expectations about the type of information online platforms and marketplaces should collect about high-volume sellers and disclose to consumers. We recognize while recognizing burdens and risks to small businesses. The internet industry are partners in the fight to protect consumers and rights holders from the threats posed by fake goods and bad actors. We hope that today's hearing will further discussion about clear, reasonable requirements within the national framework that can enable online platforms and marketplaces to continue providing convenient and safe opportunities to connect sellers and consumers. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dugan.
Good morning, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grossley, and members of the committee. My name is Ben Dugan, and I'm the Director of Organized Retail Crime and Corporate Investigations for CVS Health. I also serve as the President of CLEAR. It's the Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retail. dedicated to reducing organized retail theft nationwide. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the massive growth of organized retail crime and the impact it has on our consumers, our employees, and the communities that we service. I want to share firsthand today what I've experienced over 30 years of working on this problem. Organized retail crime represents a massive and growing threat to the tune of $45 billion a year. The internet is riddled with illegitimate sellers that hide behind the anonymity and the lack of transparency. These criminal organizations employ teams or crews of professional thieves that steal the products by any means necessary and sell them through online marketplaces. Unfortunately, these means often include daytime retail thefts, threats, intimidation, violence, horrifying stories that play out in our stores every day and which a lot of us see playing out in the media every day. There's one thing I want to leave you with today, Senators, is that we're not talking about shoplifting. We're not talking about individuals that go into a store to steal something for personal use. These crimes are connected to organized crime and carefully planned and controlled by large-scale criminal enterprises with serious economic and human implications. These professional crews can victimize the same store over and over in the same day, or they can go to dozens of stores in the same day and travel over multiple states. This is all part of this national retail theft epidemic that we're in, and it's being all controlled by organized crime. It's fueled by an increase in demand and facilitated by an unregulated online marketplaces. But perhaps the most disturbing is the direct physical harm these retail crime organizations cause retail employees every day. Very recently, a CVS manager was assaulted and remains in serious condition. These incidents are not uncommon. Reported violent events at CVS have doubled in the last year. To give it some scale, Senators, there's an organized retail crime event reported from a CVS store every 3 minutes. And 2/3 of those involve a threat of violence, actual violence, or a weapon. But there are far less obvious dangers to this crime, including infant formula. It's a favorite target of these criminal organizations. And in the investigations that I've worked, these criminals blatantly disregard all of the safety protocols for these products. They ignore or manipulate the expiration dates, and they're not storing it at proper temperatures. It compromises the product integrity and is endangering the health of an infant. Just last week, I received some disturbing photographs of a surveillance that my team had conducted where it showed criminals retrieving stolen baby formula from the basement of an abandoned home, cleaning it up, and then sending it off to repackaging it to appear as new for an online seller to sell to an unsuspecting consumer. These products go from the hands of criminals to the hands of families. Our investigations involve illicit wholesale operations that recruit hundreds of professional thieves who steal up to $1 million in product per month just from CVS. Criminal organizations closely coordinate the movements of these crews. They provide specific instructions on what items and quantities to target and purposely direct them to stores in urban and suburban neighborhoods in virtually every state. These stolen products are repackaged, distributed to the largest online marketplace sellers, and then eventually on to unsuspecting customers. We're talking about dozens of professional thieves traveling to multiple states, hitting to 20 to 30 retail stores per day, and stealing tens of thousands of dollars per store. CVS Health has resolved over $75 million in organized retail cases so far this year. But the current law doesn't provide us or law enforcement with the tools we need to hold these people accountable. These criminal organizations are growing more sophisticated, more entrenched, and the harm they do to consumers and businesses is only becoming more severe. We work closely with law enforcement to address this, in addition to try to educate our consumers. But we are running out of tools, well, like Senator Grassley said in his opening statement, to keep up. We need urgent action from this Congress. The Informed Consumers Act, championed by the leadership of this committee and several of its members, will make a meaningful difference for us. This bill will help protect consumers, it will aid law enforcement, and it will prevent crime. Making it harder for criminals to easily dispose of stolen goods through online marketplaces is the most significant step that we can take to curtail retail theft and reduce the real harm the organized retail crime represents to our employees and our customers. So Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, I appreciate your leadership on this issue and the entire committee's commitment to combating organized retail crime. Thank you again for this opportunity today, and I welcome your questions.
Thanks, Mr. Dugan. Mr. Muderich, you had a CNN interview a couple of years ago, and you said that one of your employees was spending 15 to 20 hours a week submitting forms asking Amazon and other e-commerce sites to remove products with your company's trademarks. Is that still going on?
What has happened is the producers of these goods have realized that infringing our marks is more difficult for them. So they have changed to not infringe our marks, but it doesn't change the fact that they do not comply with safety standards and flood the marketplace at severely discounted prices. So the problem remains we just no longer have standing to go to the marketplace through these brand owner protection mechanisms and say, please take this down.
So they aren't using your trademarks or identification?
It's dropped off significantly because we were so aggressive. But they do use keywords and other things that we can't enforce with our trademark to drive consumers towards purchasing these types of items rather than the legitimate product.
Dr. Campbell, what I heard you say, I think, was that the controlling law case on this subject requires that the marketplace have knowledge of deception or counterfeit status. Is that true?
That is correct. So they need to be notified, often by the brand owner, which is the notice and takedown procedure, that there's a counterfeit posting before they're required by the law to take it down. Many marketplaces, of course, still take down counterfeits beyond this, but in order for them to be held liable, secondarily liable for trademark counterfeiting, they would basically, that's the standard for it. So they only have to respond to specific knowledge of a counterfeit posting.
Mr. Snowden, I guess the thing that has always mystified me is that these internet marketplaces, which have grown in size, and all of us use them, I think it's pretty safe to say, if they're going to maintain their reputation and integrity, they should be on our side in this battle. It took 8 years to bring them around to that point. Why?
Well, I would say we are on your side. We're on the side of the consumer, and you look at our customer satisfaction reports, you'll see that consumers actually enjoy the online experience. For many, the convenience, but also they get good products. What I think, as Ms. Kamel just said, is right in the sense that, yes, when you have knowledge of something, we have to take it down, but we don't just wait for that. In 2020, Amazon took down over 10 billion bad listings. And so this process is going on. Online stores, we don't want this information on our marketplaces. It is not our goal. It hurts our reputation as online stores to have this type of activity on our site, on our stores. So we want to get it off as fast as we can. And it takes us working with retailers, rights owners, and law enforcement.
Well, I would say my observation, Amazon is late to the party, but we welcome them as a guest. They have said recently, quote, "We look forward to working with lawmakers to further strengthen the bill." The proposals that they've made over the years do not strengthen the bill. They strengthen Amazon's hand in avoiding the bill. I, for one, am not going to stand by and watch this watered down any further. We need to move on this. We're going to test your statement that they're on our side. Mr. Dugan, I asked a competitor of yours that happens to be located in my state of Illinois, and you can guess who I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
So why do you have these plastic flaps with keys necessary for underarm deodorant, for goodness sakes? What is going on here?
Senator, actually, that's actually a direct result of organized retail crime. And unfortunately, it varies sometimes in product by demographic or by city or suburban neighborhood. So we have to lock up those types of products to prevent organized retail crime groups from stealing them.
So let me pursue this for a second,
yes,
since
sir.
we just have a minute left.
Yes, sir.
So they swoop in with some container and drag everything off the shelf. Where do they end up selling these products that they've stolen?
Online marketplaces are the #1 place for these professional crews to dispose of their products. Then, like to the chairman's point, they don't come in and steal 1 or 2 of these. They steal all of deodorant in the store. to maximize profit with their fence. And unfortunately, most of that product winds up on an online marketplace.
Flea markets?
Flea markets are kind of a thing of the past, Mr. Chairman, quite frankly. I mean, it still exists, but the online marketplaces and most flea market sellers also have an online presence, so they're not mutually exclusive from one another. They do both. But flea markets don't play the role that they used to because, quite frankly, the internet provides a much larger customer base that they can sell these products to.
I'll just close by saying in 2019, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported that 83% of IP-based seizures of goods came from one country, and you can guess what it is, the equivalent of $1.4 billion. So we have retail theft at home being translated into the fencing of stolen goods in these internet marketplaces, and then we have the foreign suppliers of counterfeit goods, such as Mr. Muderik has referred to, that is another venue. There may be more, but those are the two that have been identified so far. Senator Grassley.
Yeah. To each of you, if you support legislation, what tools would you like to see in those legislation? What tools do you need?
Thank you. A more formal process to identify product we know is unsafe or does not meet safety standards and communicate that to the marketplaces versus only having intellectual property protection as the channel to communicate to that marketplace. That would be a tool that would be very useful.
Mr. Campbell?
From my perspective, transparency is very important. So we have a lot of statistics about takedowns and sellers, but not necessarily how many of those sellers had sold counterfeit prior to the takedown procedure or what is happening on the back end beyond those initial statistics. So at least from my perspective, the ability to use some of that data for research to study the problem further.
I would say information sharing is very important among all parties, is something critical for this particular issue to understand who's doing what. And also reporting requirements for particularly small sellers. Right now, I think in your bill, it's about 2 days, and I think it's important if we have a little longer, like the House bill has 10 days, I would encourage you to consider that as well.
I would say transparency, ranking member. Transparency equals accountability. We can hold people accountable. We got to first figure out who they are. So we need that transparency first before any other remedy.
Okay. To Mr. Muderik, Snowden, and Dugan, what collaborations or voluntary initiatives across or within stakeholder groups have you participated in? Have these been successful efforts? And are some marketplaces more cooperative than others?
As a member of the Toy Association, we work with our members, many of whom are manufacturers. Some retailers and online marketplaces are also members and have come to the table to have conversations. I have seen progress over the probably 8-year period that I've been involved in that conversation, specifically around, again, intellectual property protection, but have not seen progress at the table regarding these unsafe products or products that don't meet safety standards.
Mr. Snowden?
I think what we're seeing right now with attorneys general across the country, we have Utah, Illinois, Arizona, California. The AGs are setting up organized crime task force, which brings in all the parties, brings in retailers, brings in us, brings in rights holders. That's important because they're looking at it in a holistic point of view, which is the way we need to go and tackle this issue. This is organized crime. The key thing about them, they're organized. So we have to make sure we get organized on our side as well, and that takes all of us.
Mr. Dugan?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of progress in that regard. There are some online marketplaces that do cooperate. eBay is a great example of a great partner on the investigative side. I will tell you that none of the online marketplaces currently have the transparency to the level we're looking for to actually prevent crime. And the Attorney General's task forces that are being stood up that we're working very closely with that talk about increased penalties, tougher penalties. They talk about resources they want to add. They all say the same thing, right? The thing we need to make this work is transparency from the online marketplaces, which right now we don't have.
What do each of you believe has been the most successful strategy to counter illegal activity? Start with you, Mr. Muderik.
I think persistence our internal efforts nonstop to communicate this, even when we feel like we're hitting a brick wall. I'm hopeful that one day we'll break through.
Ms. Campbell?
Proactive approaches to dealing with this problem. So reactive approaches such as the notice and takedown procedures are very necessary, but when we see either marketplaces or brands really trying to take a proactive approach before it ever gets posted, we find those the most effective.
I would agree with the proactive nature of what past witness just said, but I would also add that it's important that what's been successful is being able to have the partnership with brands and rights holders. They know what's counterfeit, and they know what's illegal. So working that angle and having us work together, I think, has been the most success.
What I've learned in my years investigating this crime is that we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of this problem. We do need proactive solutions to really stem the tide of this growth of organized retail crime. So proactive measures, but preventative measures have been the most effective, and I think will be the most effective going forward, and I believe this bill does that.
Mr. Dugan, I'm just going to jump in because I don't believe you have identified the percentage the retail theft impact on a business, a drugstore. Can you give a percentage of sales?
Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, I'm unable to talk about specific retail shrink numbers, loss numbers to CVS. I will tell you this, Mr. Chairman, that it is pretty consistent across all retail, all types of retail. We're all seeing the crime affect us at a similar level, and it's higher than any other level it has been in history. I know that there are some CEOs that have made public statements about how that ORC is affecting their overall profitability. So I think those are available to you, but we could possibly get back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Please do, Senator Klobuchar.
Very good. Thank you very much, Senator Durbin, for your leadership, longtime leadership on this issue, and all of you for your work. I want to focus on some bipartisan legislation that Senator Grassley and Durbin and others introduced with me, and that would prevent dominant digital platforms from engaging in behavior that unfairly harms competition, like, and relevant here, knocking off products sold on their platform. Recent reports in places like the Wall Street Journal have documented how Amazon has created knockoff products based on the data that they get from innocent companies that are selling on their platform, and of course it's the big platform in town, and then engages in self-preferencing of their own brands above other brands. Mr. Snowden, do you support legislation in making it illegal to use special access to online seller data to create copycat versions of popular products?
Senator, this is an issue that I have members on both sides. So IA has traditionally not taken a stance on the competition issues, and I don't plan to make news today.
Okay, I just wondered. I knew that, but I thought I'd ask.
And
I have a lot of people on a lot of sides here, but
yeah.
Just to be clear, I get this, but at some point, this Congress has to take a side. And do you want to add anything, Mr. Dugan?
No, I'm sorry, Senator, but this is the first I've heard of that, and I was kind of fascinated.
You were nodding your head, so I thought you agreed with
I was learning something, Senator. You were teaching me something, so
okay.
I find it amazing, but thank you.
Okay, well, it's true. Mr. Murderick.
Thank you. A few months ago, I was sent a link to a new product on Amazon, an Amazon Basics version of our product. And I was obviously concerned. Then I looked a little deeper, and I saw that not only was it a knockoff of our product, but it violated a number of our trademarks. So someone did not do their homework. And we were able to quickly get it taken down through the Amazon brand registry, which speaks to some of the progress they've made, but I think it speaks also to an underlying problem that you have brought up here.
Very, very good, and I appreciate that. And I think we're seeing so much more of it than, you just happen to be on this panel. We've had people who have experienced this, as we know from the reporting, and I think there's just a lot of it. And my view is that we've got to update our laws, which is part of the work that Senator Durbin and Senator Grassley have been doing. I'm also, of course, concerned about safety when consumers buy products online. Just last week in the Commerce Committee, I questioned Snap about the heart-wrenching stories of young people in Minnesota who died after taking drugs that were purchased on Snap. In one case, they didn't know that it was laced with fentanyl. Mr. Dugan, what are some of the harm consumers can experience when they unknowingly purchase unsafe goods online?
Thank you for that question, Senator. There's a lot of harms. I will say that there's virtually no product integrity online, so I would caution buying sensitive products online unless you know that they're safe. We spoke about infant formula. There's another cases that I've worked, unfortunately, involving organized crews that steal millions of dollars in diabetic test strips and sell them and store them at different temperatures and then wind up counterfeiting the diabetic test strips and then sell them to unsuspecting patients with diabetes across the country. So there's a lot of harm across there. The effectiveness of over-the-counter drugs, they expire, they get less effective. It's really a domino effect on the type of safety hazards that are out there when there's no product integrity.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the fentanyl example is an example of drugs that shouldn't be sold at all on a platform. Snap has pledged to take these down and do what they can to get in the witnesses' words at the last hearing, drug dealers off their platform. But the truth is, I continue to believe that when you have these new marketplaces with people making tons of money, that they have to start being responsible for taking this stuff down. Ms. Camel, in your experience, when consumers are making purchases online, do they have enough information to decide for themselves whether a product might be unsafe?
No, they don't. Often they are looking just at an image. Sometimes it's a copy of another brand's copyrighted image and what information the seller decides to put on the site. So one cannot tell what they're actually buying until they receive the product, even if it appears genuine at first glance.
Mm-hmm. And whether it's counterfeit PPE on Amazon or advertisements for fake COVID-19 vaccines on Facebook, do you think that online platforms are doing enough to stop this conduct? What else should they be doing?
There were a lot of initiatives around fake PPE and counterfeit COVID-related products, for sure, and I do applaud the marketplaces for looking at that. But across the board, we see counterfeits in almost every industry that we work with, almost every product line that's successful. So I believe more should be done proactively.
Very good. Well, I really appreciate it. And again, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for all your work on this and for being a co-sponsor of our bill, which I think is so timely given what we're talking about here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Klobuchar. Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of you for offering your insights today. We've all seen that e-commerce has revolutionized the marketplace. It's revolutionized the way we live and operate and do business. And it's given a lot of people opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. There are some challenges that have, of course, accompanied this technological revolution and the corresponding social and economic revolution that has occurred with it. As we seek to make the world a better place and the online experience to be better, we've got to be careful because anytime we enact laws, those laws can have consequences. We want to make sure that any laws we enact and codify don't make things worse or don't create one problem while purporting to solve another. And the legislation we're talking about today is something that we ought to scrutinize carefully to make sure that we've got it right. I do have some concerns with it. Mr. Stone, I'd like to start with you, if that's all right. The Inform Act has a laudable goal, one that I think all of us would share. Of cracking down on counterfeit and stolen merchandise sales on the internet. Nobody wants that. Everyone wants to crack down on that, at least everyone in this room. But I wonder how difficult some of the requirements might be for some companies, especially smaller online marketplaces. And by smaller online marketplaces, I mean, to a degree, anything other than the largest among them. Anything smaller than the largest among them could suffer. For example, the bill requires verification of high-volume third-party sellers and requires that within 3 business days
Right. And then it also requires continuous annual certification of all sellers. The threshold definition of a high-volume seller is set fairly low. It's triggered once you pass the required sales of between $5,000 and $7,000 annually. It's pretty low. It would take in a lot of people. Do you have any idea? I'm imagining that the combined sellers of your member companies can certainly be numbered in the many thousands, if not millions. Am I on track there roughly?
In the millions, yes.
In the millions. So we're talking about millions and millions of sellers. Now, Amazon might, just might, be able to do this verification with technology. It might be able to do it just fine. I'm not sure. But I doubt all of your members would. And I definitely worry about smaller platforms that might not be able to do this. Could the bill, assuming that I'm right, that some really large online marketplaces, Amazon, for example, might be able to do this, but smaller companies wouldn't, could the bill end up actually helping a company like Amazon while making it more difficult for smaller businesses to operate and do so in compliance with the law?
Well, Senator, I think your characterization of sellers who use our online marketplaces is accurate. It can be someone, a mom who's working on handmade goods or something that she makes in her basement. And then she would fall to the verification process of having to do it every 3 days. I think what happens in the House bill, which is about 10 days, gives a little bit more time and flexibility. We don't want to have barriers that will limit sellers from being able to get online and sell their goods. The beautiful thing about online marketplaces is that it opens up the door for more sellers, but it also opens up the door for more buyers to see your products.
Right.
So I would say that the 10-day threshold, I think, would be important, and also raising the limit to $20,000. Right now, I think it's like you said, it's $5,000 or $7,000. One of the issues is if you think about someone selling something, if it's $5,000 over 200 sales, that's about $13 a week selling a product. That's not a lot of money.
Which gets to another concern that I've got. I do worry about language in the Inform Act and in the Shop Safe Act that would mandate the public disclosure of the platform's sellers' names and contact information. This worries me for three independent reasons. Number one, there are a lot of individuals, moms and dads out there who work from home, or at least partially from home, who operate out of their homes. And if they have to provide their name and their address, that could present some privacy and safety and security issues for them. Some of them might be deterred from engaging in that line of work at all. Number two, it could end up stifling competition by giving larger companies the ability to poach sellers, the sellers who have been affiliated with their smaller competitors. And number three, the sheer regulatory burden associated with this could itself create a natural barrier on entry, a natural restriction on entry, making it harder generally for smaller competitors to compete. Am I right to be concerned about those three things?
I think you are. The one concern that I would applaud the chairman and members of the committee who have worked with us and others, particularly in the House side as well as the Senate side, to allow consumers or sellers to be able to report their business information versus their personal information, because that is definitely a barrier. If I'm a single mom creating products out of my basement, I don't want everyone to know where my home address is. So I would definitely say that we need to keep going down that path.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, for holding this important hearing. The Ranking Member and I have been co-chairs of the Trademark Caucus for a long time. And have held a number of caucus meetings and hearings over the last decade about the risk that counterfeit goods provide or pose to American consumers. This testimony today is riveting and challenging. It reminds us that as the marketplace for the purchase of goods online has grown and grown, and particularly strongly during the pandemic, that the number of stolen and counterfeit goods that are now being stolen and fenced or produced and sold to American consumers has taken off dramatically. We've heard about unsafe goods, whether they're cell phone batteries or bike helmets or spoiled baby formula or counterfeit drugs that have harmed Americans. They also ruin the trust built between brand owners and consumers, as Crazy Aaron, not so crazy Aaron, pretty wise and capable Aaron has demonstrated to us today. I think we need to take stronger steps to address the online sale of these goods before they reach consumers' hands. There's some studies that suggest as much as a quarter of all Americans who've purchased goods online have unknowingly purchased a counterfeit good. That's why I'm proud, along with my colleague Senator Tillis, to have introduced the Shop Safe Act. I was pleased to see a strong bipartisan vote over in the House Judiciary Committee to send Shop Safe to the floor. It will encourage electronic commerce providers to adopt anti-counterfeiting best practices in exchange for a safe harbor from contributory liability for trademark infringement. That bill will increase transparency, keep counterfeit goods with a health and safety impact out of consumer hands, and I think promote the health and safety of our country and continue to accelerate the growth of these innovative sales platforms. There's also an urgent need to provide transparency to consumers. That's why I'm also proud to support the Informed Consumers Act. As Mr. Dugan made clear, there's a great need for greater transparency. So I think Shop Safe and Inform complement each other to significantly increase transparency and accountability. And I urge my colleagues to support both of these important bills. Let me turn to some quick questions if I could. Mr. Muderich, my daughter's a satisfied customer, really loves putty and slime and so forth, and had commented on just how inventive your products are. But I'm struck by your descriptions about how hard it has been to enforce your trademark and how much time you've had to dedicate to it. Could you just briefly give us a little more detail? How many other competitors, how many other small business owners like you have had to dedicate enormous amount of resources to the whack-a-mole game of notice and takedown, notice and takedown, notice and takedown with online platforms?
So we go to trade shows, at least pre-pandemic, and so us owners sit around and we talk, and the toy industry in particular is a sort of started my life with something else, invented something, and landed here. And imitation is the finest form of flattery, and I think many of us are very, very flattered. I think if we have a successful product, you are going to see these outright knockoffs, counterfeiters, coming into the marketplace.
And you described how magnetic putty that has much lower safety standards poses a real threat to children and infants in particular. What would it mean to you and other small business owners if platforms took more proactive steps to combat counterfeit good sales?
Well, it would reduce, on the one side, the resources we need to spend sort of pounding against a wall trying to get someone to listen. It also, I think, would help our brand integrity. It would help consumer confidence, and we would probably receive more of the legitimate sales of the product than the sales which are going to illicit product.
Thank you. Mr. Dugan, how will the information that Inform would collect assist in combating the sale of the online sale of stolen goods?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think it will do more to prevent these accounts from even being opened in the first place. You know, it will definitely protect the consumers from these sellers. It will aid law enforcement. It'll enable us to identify the bad actors much quicker, and will prevent the further expansion of the crime. I think right now what's vital right now is that we're in the middle of an epidemic, that we take immediate action to slow this down.
Thank you, Mr. Dugan. Mr. Snowden, some platforms have said they'd like to see affirmative requirements for brand owners in Shop Safe. Why isn't the current duty brand owners have to police their own trademarks, as Mr. Muderich has, enough to encourage them to assist platforms in policing counterfeit goods? And what requirements would platforms like to see of brand owners in the bill?
Well, I think one of the things you're doing in the bill is changing the liability. So a contributory liability is going to put the burden on us and not on them. They have no responsibility in this. It's important that they stay at the table as well. We cannot do this alone. It takes all of us. And we have been proactive for many years working on this particular issue. I mean, when I look at the retail side, eBay has a program for over 10 years working directly with retailers to help identify suspicious products. So this is something we want to do, but we need retailers, we need rights holders to make sure that they are still at the table and they have a responsibility to help us police their products as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I might have one final question. Professor Kamel, just help us understand how this balance works. If you would, describe the whack-a-mole problem experienced by brand owners. And I've heard some argue ShopSafe is a handout to big tech, that it immunizes them from liability they already have in exchange for nothing meaningful. Is that accurate, or is it true that online platforms are not frequently broadly liable for trademark infringement?
Sure. So to the first part of your question about the whack-a-mole approach, this is when, as has been described today, a counterfeit posting is up, a brand owner tries to react to it, and they spend hours searching for these counterfeit postings across multiple e-commerce platforms, and an entire sub-industry has actually sprung up to basically monitor these platforms to the best of their ability, verify with the brand owners, and then submit for notice and takedown. So hence the term whack-a-mole. Once you take down one, another 10 or 20 come up in its place. And the second part of your question, could you please repeat?
About contributory liability and whether this is just a handout to big tech, ShopSafe, that immunizes them from liability they already have in exchange for nothing meaningful. That's been one criticism after the house market.
Sure. So I don't believe that. I think it addresses what I've written about, which is law disruptive technology. So this technology has been wonderful for all of us. Everybody, I'm sure almost everybody in this room uses e-commerce, but there still has to be a balance to it. And we're sort of reaching that tipping point where we've seen all of these strict products liability cases being brought because people who are being injured cannot find the seller of the goods. So to flip that back to the secondary liability, it creates this space where e-commerce platforms do have to proactively do something to prevent the postings from ever coming up. Brand owners still need to be involved to help identify what their trademarks are, but we find a more balanced meeting between them.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to working with all of you to reform this further. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator Coons. On the floor, we've started the first of three roll calls. I'm going to go make the first one, and Senator Blumenthal is going to preside after I recognize Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Kamel, I want to come to you, if I may. Section 230. I know that some online sellers have used Section 230 as a shield to prevent them from liability, and I come from Tennessee. And, of course, we have aftermarket auto parts that copyrights have been infringed. We have things like Gibson guitars that have been infringed, and not to mention books that have been published, music. But, you know, when you talk about the auto parts, the engines for boats and motorsports, things of that nature, sometimes we've seen in these cases where online sellers really try to hide behind Section 230. So do you see that specific part of the law as something that is a potential obstacle to consumers who are trying to get recourse for having bought something that's a fraudulent product?
I'm very aware of Section 230. It's not an area that I've spent a significant amount of time researching, but I do know that the sellers of counterfeit goods will try to hide behind almost anything they possibly can.
Why don't you take a look at that and then weigh back in with us? Mr. Muderich, let me come to you. Country of origin labeling. I've heard from so many people that sell online that they think this is a good thing, and also from people who buy online because specifically they don't want to be buying products from China, because many times they feel like they're an infringed or a knockoff. And certainly in Tennessee with some of our toy inventors, we have had problems. I'm certain you've met with some of these guys. So talk to me about why that type disclosure and how it can be done so that people get the protection and the knowledge, but their privacy is protected, why it's a good thing.
Sure. I mean, when I was starting a business, I was making putty and selling it out of my home. And when the time came that I felt like I needed some protection of my privacy of my home, I got a P.O. box. But at least there's a way to trace it back, right? And then eventually I got an office. There's ways to communicate to the customer a place to go, especially if there's a legal recourse, while maintaining personal privacy. in terms of country of origin labeling, obviously it's required by law. It's important for consumers. When I look at these products, sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it will be in the online listing, sometimes it won't, and often it is in conflict with whatever the online listing says. It's absolute chaos.
And Mr. Snowden, I want to go back. Senator Klobuchar was asking you about protections, and I think you might want to explain. It sounded in your response that you do not support intellectual property protections for U.S. innovators, and that's a protection to them under law. But when you said you have members that are for disclosure, members that are against disclosure, intellectual property protections are very important to this committee.
And I 100% agree with you. It's important to us as well. What I was referring to with Senator Klobuchar, she was mentioning the self-preferencing part of her bill, and that's the part that I said that I was not going to make a comment on today.
Okay. I think that's so. Let's go to the country of origin labeling. Where are your members on that?
Well, the country of origin is a challenge for us because sometimes we may not even know, we don't touch the product in some cases. In other cases, well, let me back up. It's important to recognize that online marketplaces aren't just one company. And I think someone said a moment ago, this is just about big tech. There are small tech online stores as well. And so when we try to track country of origin, a lot of that is tied up with trade agreements. It's also enforced by Border Patrol.
But do you think that everyone in the online marketplace has a responsibility to know what they're selling and what they're bringing to the marketplace?
What they're selling,
Would you
yes.
agree with that?
What they're selling, yes, but the country of origin is
Okay,
very
Mr.
different.
Dugan, you want to weigh in on that?
This is a 50-state problem, Senator. We have a lot of plenty of homegrown thieves and organized retail crime organizations to deal with. Transnational organized retail crime is part of this, but not a major factor as far as we can see right now.
Okay. My time has expired. Ms. Kamel, I'm going to come back to you for a written answer on your comments on law disruptive technology. I think that would be helpful as we look at how we're going to move forward on this issue and protect U.S. innovators and protect a healthy, productive online place that consumers can feel and be certain that they know they're not getting fraudulent, counterfeited products. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Blackburn. I will preside while Senator Durbin is voting and recognize myself. To all the witnesses, thank you for being here today. As the chair of the Commerce Subcommittee on Consumer Protection, I've been focused on the role of the Consumer Product Safety Commission and our consumer product safety laws, particularly in the struggle to get online marketplaces to take seriously their responsibility to recall dangerous items. We have a procedure now to protect people, recall dangerous products, but all too often the online marketplaces feel they have no responsibility to inform consumers or to in any way participate in recalls. Just as one example, in April of 2019, I wrote to Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist about the fact that they were not effectively preventing the sale of recalled products, including rock and play sleepers that have been linked to 32 infant deaths. They have been laggard, slow, inconsistent in taking on responsibilities that other sellers and retailers observe. And I am now considering reforms that should be made that would strengthen the CPSC. One of them is that we need to make sure online marketplaces are covered by the product safety and recall laws. So let me ask the witnesses, all of you, what role you think that the CPSC can have along with the FTC, in enforcing these laws. And I should just emphasize, we have a lot of good laws. Often they're unenforced. We've spent a lot of time making new laws that are then unenforced. Frustrating? Yes. Dangerous? Yes. We need to focus on enforcement and give the FTC and the CPSC the tools they need to assure that the law is more than just dead letter. So let me go down the panel.
Thank you. I've had conversations with CPSC and shared my information about the products that we have and the infringers that we see. I think that CPSC does an effective job at looking at the ports and bulk shipments that are coming into the United States, but I think they're very challenged, as is the Postal Service, at the single parcels that come through third-party sellers into the United States. It's just a torrent of small envelopes, and it's very hard for them to develop a strategy to interdict them or prevent them from reaching consumers' hands. I don't know. It's sort of outside the scope of my knowledge what we might do about it, but to me, that's where I see a major problem.
Ms. Camel?
The areas that we research focus primarily on trademark counterfeiting and then any overlap with consumer product safety issues. So I think it's important for platforms or anyone who is in the business of providing a space for consumers to purchase product, that whatever laws are in place, they uphold, whether they're brick and mortar or whether they're an online space.
Senator, I think this is something I would like to come and talk to you about more, but I will share that when we are notified of recalls or made aware of recalls, we do pull the product down in most cases where we can, and also we try to inform the consumer. In some cases, when you try to inform the consumer, the product may have been bought 2 or 3 years ago, and the email address, whatever we may have for that particular consumer, we may not have, or they may not be able to be contacted. But that is something that we are working on, and we take it very seriously.
Well, I apologize, Senator. That's beyond my role at CVS Health. I'm not familiar with some of the laws that you mentioned earlier, but I would assume that we would be in support of any action that helps protect consumers.
Thank you. Let me ask one more question. You know, one of the obstacles to effective accountability currently is Section 230, which in effect creates broad immunity for the platforms. Let me ask you, Ms. Camel, whether you're familiar with the impediments of Section 230 to effective accountability to consumers on the part of the platforms. And I'm an advocate of reforming Section 230. We've managed in certain discrete areas to do it. We are proposing additional measures. Senator Graham and I have a proposal which we've introduced in past Congresses called the Earn It Act. It's bipartisan. It passed unanimously from the Judiciary Committee. Just one example of what we can do to impose greater accountability if we reform Section 230.
Thank you for the question. I'm very aware of Section 230. It's not part of my current research, but I'm happy to provide you with some follow-up afterwards.
That would be great. And anyone else who wants to add any views on Section 230, I'd welcome it. Thank you. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all the witnesses for being here. Mr. Dugan, I just want to start with you, if I could. I noticed something in your testimony that I thought was interesting. You said that much of the problem with counterfeit goods online is due to organized crime in brick and mortar stores, and that organized criminals shoplift from those stores, and then they turn around and they sell the goods online. Have I got that right?
No, Senator, I don't think I commented on counterfeit goods.
Well,
probably stolen goods.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Stolen goods. Stolen. I'm sorry, I introduced the word counterfeit. Okay. I mean, they're goods online that are stolen, and then they steal them from brick and mortar stores and turn around and sell them online. Have I got that?
Yes, sir.
That right? Okay. So the New York Times earlier this year had a story in which you were quoted, I think, as saying our security officers are assaulted on a pretty regular basis in San Francisco, and that San Francisco is one of the epicenters of organized retail crime. Have I got that right?
Yes, sir. You do.
Can you just say more about that? Because I think this is something that has not been widely reported. It's not widely understood that part of the problem that we're seeing in counterfeit, or in this case, stolen goods online. I mean, we've got a deluge of these goods, and it's linked also, it now turns out, to the crime wave that we're also seeing across the country. So maybe say something more about that.
Yes, thank you for that question, Senator. I will start by saying that this is not a big city crime, that this occurs in all 50 states. Thefts of organized retail crime occur just as much in low-crime suburban neighborhoods as they do in America's largest cities. I know that's probably news to a lot of folks because it's not covered on the media as it is in some of our major cities. So what I meant to say is we were talking about San Francisco specifically. There's a lot of stolen product there that gets filtered to other states, specifically like Texas, North Carolina, and New Jersey. They get a lot of that stolen product from San Francisco. So what I was trying to make a point was, even though the product is stolen in one area, the problem is statewide. That's why we need federal legislation.
Right. So in other words, it can be stolen from one place, San Francisco, New York, St. Louis, whatever, wherever. And but then it finds its way online. I mean, so it shows up in online marketplaces in some contexts, and it's competing with legitimate goods with goods that are entirely legal online. And you've got competition that's making its way into these online marketplaces that's due to organized crime at the brick and mortar level. Is that fair to say? Have I got that right?
That is fair to say, except I would add it's unfair competition.
Right, yeah, exactly.
They're getting the products for much cheaper. But that's what our team does. We track these investigations state to state. All across the country, and then ultimately it leads us to the same place, which is an online marketplace, which is why we're looking for your help today.
And what do you think is the best way for this body to address that phenomenon?
I think the swift passage of the Inform Act is a vital first step. Very good.
Thank you for that. I want to turn to the Amazon self-preferencing question here for a moment. Mr. Mutrick, I think that you testified to Senator Klobuchar earlier that your product in particular, that Amazon for a while had an Amazon Basics knockoff of your product. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
It's now been taken down, is that?
It was taken down only because it, I'll say, accidentally infringed on some of our registered trademarks.
I see. So I just want to highlight this problem because I think it's so central. Last year, the Wall Street Journal reported that Amazon collects detailed data about merchandise, so Amazon can create copycat products. They did that with your product, it sounds like. The Wall Street Journal report said this was standard operating procedure. Amazon denied that. They said they had procedures in place banning the practice. Now, has that been your experience, Mr. Mutrick?
I do not have any insight into how Amazon makes their decisions, but I was aware that the 4-pack that they created, or 6-pack that they created, bore a striking resemblance to another unique item that we had on Amazon.
Well, it doesn't seem that you're the only one. Employees in the same report said that the procedures that Amazon referenced weren't enforced, and in fact, Amazon encouraged employees to break those procedures. And then last month, Reuters reported that Amazon's own internal documents reveal it's still doing the same thing. The markup has reported evidence that Amazon is systematically rigging its search engine to return results for its copycat products over producers like you, Mr. Mutrick. And I just want to drive home the point that we can talk all day about the problems of counterfeit goods, and those are significant, but that's not going to make a huge dent, I don't think, unless we do something about the self-preferencing on these platforms. I've introduced legislation that would prohibit this self-preferencing. I've joined legislation by Senator Klobuchar and Senator Grassley that heads in the same direction, and I just want to underline that I think that is absolutely vital that we tackle this issue. Last thing, Mr. Mutrick, in my few remaining seconds here, Senator Blackburn was asking about some of the country of origin issues, and I want to just highlight this. Your product, tell us about the problem of counterfeiters using high-strength magnets in some of the knockoffs of your product. And I think that these were not goods that were not made in the United States of America. Is that right?
That's right. These samples I have here, which I ordered last week, were not made in the United States. Some of them do have producer markings. This one says made in China. This one says nothing at all. And they do contain these high-strength magnets, which cause significant hazard to children when they're playing with this product.
Absolutely, and I just want to underline that we're talking a lot right now about supply chain and manufacturing issues, which is absolutely important given our supply chain crisis. But I think what we're also seeing in this context is that when giant companies like Amazon help hawk foreign counterfeits, these are counterfeits, they're made abroad, parents don't usually have any way of knowing this, it's very difficult to find out. they're not only endangering children, they're also taking jobs away from people like you and your company that are made here in this country, and putting American kids at risk, as well as our own economy. So we need to find ways to push back against this simultaneous problem of counterfeiting, of misrepresentation of goods, and also, frankly, offshoring. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Hawley. And now, Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the panelists. Mr. Dugan, you mentioned that you think that the Inform Act should be passed as quickly as possible. My understanding is that the House version of this act changed the date when the consumer receives information about the product to after the point of sale. Do you support that change?
I support both the House legislation and the companion here in the Senate. I'm not an expert or legislator, so I'm going to kind of leave that to the legislators if I could.
Doesn't it make more sense to get the information to the consumer before the consumer purchases the item?
Yes, I support that, yes.
So since Mr. Dugan supports the passage of the Inform Act, do the other panelists also support the passage of this act? Please.
Senator, we have not weighed in with official support. Right now, we're still want to work with the committee to fine-tune some things in the bill, particularly the verification timelines and thresholds, which are very important.
But it sounds as though you support the concept of disclosure information.
Correct. And inform.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mudarek? You have brought to the attention of these online sellers, about maybe Amazon, that they have online unsafe products and they don't take it down. You've been asked a number of questions relating to Section 230, and I'm wondering where the online platform receives money for advertising the product, whether they should be exposed to liability. What do you think? Any of you?
I'm not sure if I fully understand your question, Senator. Can you?
Right now, Section 230 pretty much protects the online marketplace of Google and Amazon. Let's just use Amazon. That whatever is the content, they have no responsibility for monitoring or doing anything, disclosing anything. So I am co-sponsor of the Safe Tech Act, which requires that in certain instances, these platforms will not have the benefit of liability protection. One of the instances would be if they actually receive money for that item to be advertised on their platforms.
Well, Section 230 allows us to actually take down the content. That's why it's so vital that we have that liability protection. So anything that would harm or dilute that protection would be a concern of ours.
Well, except that if the platform does not take down this product, as was the case with Mr. Bubarek, then shouldn't there be some liability attaching?
Well,
because right now there's nothing that really requires these platforms to take those kinds of precautions. If they want to, they can. If they don't, they still get the liability protection.
Actually, ma'am, there's law now that says if we're notified of something, we have to take it down, and that is required, and so we do that. Now, Mr. Mudarek, I don't know all of his examples, and I'm not familiar with everything. It's the first time I'm hearing about it, so I can't comment on exactly what he's saying, but I can tell you that there is existing law that says if we're notified about something, we must take it down.
Oh, that is surprising because this committee has had other hearings where certain video, for example, it's very harmful. The platform is asked to take down a video, for example, a father whose daughter was shot and killed online. The video, so he kept asking the platform to take down the video, and they never took it down. So I don't understand your comment that if you requested, you have to take something down.
In the example Mr. Mudarek said was there were products that were infringing on his trademarks. And in those cases, that information, once we're notified of that, there's precedence there, there's law there that says we have to take it down. That's notice and comment.
If I may,
Yes.
On a monthly basis, we would send in lists of product which did not infringe our marks, but were obviously in violation of federal safety standards. Mm-hmm. And on a monthly basis, we would follow up with the same list of not only the same products, but even in many cases, the same exact listing that had not been taken down.
So I am among the members of this committee who are looking at the Section 230 immunity provisions to make some changes. I realize that every time we do that, there might be unintended consequences. So the bill that I mentioned, Safe Tech Act, seeks to really define those instances when that immunity is not available. And so I'm going to continue to pursue it. I would ask the panelists to take a look at the Safe Tech Act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dugan,
Sorry, I don't understand your...
over the last several years, we've seen repeated efforts in Democrat-controlled cities and states to effectively decriminalize theft. California, for example, said that any theft under $950 is no longer a felony, and we won't arrest you if you're under that dollar figure. A recent NBC News article stated that both CVS and Walgreens say shoplifting in San Francisco outpaces thefts at their stores across the country. Pretty common sense. If you remove or greatly reduce the penalty for stealing things, theft gets worse. What exactly are the figures for non-employee theft in CVS stores around the country? And in particular, how do the rates of theft differ in jurisdictions with so-called progressive prosecutors who decline to prosecute shoplifting versus jurisdictions where law enforcement is enforcing laws against theft?
Well, thank you for that question, Senator. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to disclose CVS financial information about losses. But if you allow me to comment, this is not a big city problem, right? Decriminalization is contributing to the problem. You're right, sir.
Is there more theft in San Francisco than elsewhere?
No, sir.
There's not?
Not relative to the amount of stores and market share that we have. It's higher. But
so NBC News was wrong when they said that?
I can only speak to what I see every day on the ground, Senator, and I follow these criminals day to day from state to state and city to city.
So CVS would support other jurisdictions legalizing shoplifting up to $950?
CVS does not support legalizing shoplifting.
Why not?
Senator.
Why not?
We're not going to endorse criminal activity.
But you're saying it has no effect.
I never said it had no effect.
You said there's not worse shoplifting in San Francisco. I find that highly dubious.
No effect, Senator.
Does it have an effect or not?
Yes, of course it does.
What's the effect?
The effect is shoplifting is completely different than organized retail crime. If you're talking about shoplifting, that's a whole different dynamic than organized retail crime.
And so my question is, what's the effect? You guys have the data.
I'm sure I understand your question, Senator. Is there an effect? Do we take losses to shoplifting? Yes, like every other retailer.
And are they greater in jurisdictions that effectively legalize it?
No, they're not.
So then why would you oppose every jurisdiction legalizing shoplifting? Your questions are not, your answers are not making any sense, sir.
Well, I respectfully disagree. I think it's making perfect sense. What I'm saying, Senator, is this crime goes to all 50 states. It's not a big city problem. Absolutely not.
So why would you oppose every jurisdiction legalizing shoplifting? Sir, why would you oppose every jurisdiction legalizing shoplifting?
We're not going to. Why are we not going to oppose?
Why?
Legalizing shoplifting?
Yes.
No, we're not going to do that, Senator. We're not going to endorse criminal activity. But shoplifting is a different dynamic than organized retail crime. And what I'm here to testify about today is that organized retail crime
all right,
affects every city,
that's really quite remarkable.
Including the major cities in Texas.
That's really quite remarkable. Let me ask a different question, which is you go into great detail about organized criminal organizations, but I want to point to you to something in Ms. Campbell's testimony where she cites the work of J.P. Kennedy, who's written a lot on the subject of theft. And one scholarly article that Mr. Kennedy wrote, Functional Redundancy in Response to Employee Theft Within Small Businesses, has an interesting paragraph on the second page which is relevant to this discussion. It says, quote, "It has been estimated that employee theft within the United States is 10 times more costly than all forms of traditional street crime, and that it cost victimized businesses in the U.S. economy as much as $400 billion a year. Furthermore, employee theft is estimated to cost victimized businesses significantly more than non-employee theft within the same businesses. In your experience, what is the relative magnitude of employee theft versus non-employee theft for retailers?
My scope at CVS, Senator, is to investigate the external part of the theft. I don't have the internal figures necessarily at CVS. I will say overall, as the president of the Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retail, that internal theft is down. I could certainly provide you a report with those figures attached to it, Senator, if you'd like me to. But
do you have any judgment as to which is bigger, employee theft or non-employee theft?
Well, I might be a biased opinion there, Senator, because I'm in the street every day working on organized retail crime. I see the harm that it does every day, why we need this federal legislation. So I see it.
Sir, with all respect, I'd like you to answer my question. Do you have any judgment as to which is bigger, employee theft or non-employee theft? And in particular, Mr. Kennedy says employee theft is 10 times larger.
No, I would disagree with that assessment.
Do you have any judgment as to which is bigger, employee theft or non-employee theft?
Most recently, over the spread of this epidemic, I would say non-employee theft.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to thank the witnesses for coming in today and testifying. It was an interesting panel and drew a large part of our membership here on the Senate Judiciary Committee. We have committee jurisdiction issues, which suggests that the Senate Commerce Committee has jurisdiction over this issue. We have jurisdiction over Senator Coons' aspects of it. That's ours to worry about. But the problem is real, and we now have all the major players on board, apparently, to are doing something about it. And I'm going to do my best, though it won't go through this committee, to encourage the Commerce Committee to join with us in this effort. So I thank you for lending your voices to it. It's been 13 years for me since I first saw those Home Depot drills and realized what was going on out there. That's a long time to wait for an answer. Maybe not by Senate standards, but by normal human standards. So thank you for joining us today. And with that, the Senate Judiciary Committee stands adjourned.